We have our competitors for this year's Money in the Bank ladder matches for both the men's side and the women's side. We are currently in the midst of Monday Night Raw, Lexington, emanating live, obviously, from Lexington, Kentucky. And what is going on out there, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot. Thanks so much for checking us out here today on Watchalong Wrestling. Kurt Hawkins, Zack Ryder on their way to the ring, but there's a lot more that's already gone on Raw. So let's get you guys up to speed if you're just tuning in and just joining us here for the first time. By the way, I am, as I said, Tommy on the spot with Watchalong Wrestling. It's great to be here with each and every one of you guys. We usually join in and join you guys here every single week for the final hour of Monday Night Raw. I'll have a little live stream going on. The live chat is open and working this week. I know last week we had some trouble, at least in the beginning of it, so chat should be good to go. And we are now up. So let's talk about it. Let's start things off. Yesterday, came on with you guys, gave you guys a little bit of a hotline as to who I thought I wanted to see in the Money in the Bank ladder match for the men's and for the women on both sides. But for Raw, I had 3 on each side because I thought they'd go with 6. They actually are going with 8 competitors on the Raw side, at least from the women. It is going to be Natalya, and then actually the 3 women that I said. It's going to be Naomi, it's going to be Alexa Bliss, and Dana Brooke. So Dana Brooke is getting the hope spot this year in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I told you they were starting something with Dana Brooke. So real interested to see kind of where that unfolds, if they continue to kind of build her up, or if they decide to kind of let her kind of fall by the wayside there. On the men's side of things, it is actually a little bit different than originally because there was something that was leaked with a picture of all the men who are going to be a part of the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. But they ended up going with Braun Strowman, who won the Money in the Bank ladder match last year, Baron Corbin, who won the Money in the Bank ladder match 2 years ago, and then joining them will be Drew McIntyre and Ricochet. So those were the 2 that we got right. I also thought The Miz was going to go in there, but as we found out tonight, The Miz is not going to be a part of Money in the Bank ladder match because his rivalry with Shane McMahon is still not over. They had Shane McMahon come out and kind of attack The Miz and cause some issues for The Miz. So their deal is not done. It looked like maybe they were going to be wrapping things up kind of post-Mania. But again, Shane got the upper hand on The Miz. This guy, he gets the upper hand on The Miz all the time. I'm not sure Miz has ever got the upper hand on Shane. So looks like they're going to be continuing their rivalry. Also saw a little bit of a build kind of right before we went on here with Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans showing a real amount of fire between the 2 of them, kind of continuing to build their Raw Women's Championship match. And then obviously the SmackDown side of things, Becky Lynch is going to be taking on Charlotte Flair. So that's kind of something interesting to kind of take a look at and something to kind of keep tabs on as we continue down the road to Money in the Bank. As I did see my boy Sanjay Dutt. I don't know if it's his Raw debut, but he was out there in the fracas, so to speak, between Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans. So very cool stuff. I thought that Lacey Evans showed a lot of fire. I think that's what they need to do. I think that's what they should have done really from the start. Have Lacey get out there and really kind of show that she's a badass. Because that's how they built Lacey Evans up during the Mae Young Classic. And I understand that's not the character they're going with right now. But at the end of the day, if they're going to be building her up as a competitor to go against Becky Lynch, she needs to be someone that we can take seriously. Now they're showing some Make-A-Wish type deals. Obviously, WWE does good work with them. It is going to be the Revival here taking on Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. I got to be honest, guys, as I see here, because the Raw Tag Team division is really kind of heating up here. They had the War Raiders, who I think now are going as the Viking Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. They destroyed the Lucha House Party. There was a match where the Usos took on Gallows and Anderson, and this one killed me. This match absolutely killed me. Not because the Usos won, because I like the Usos. There's no problem I have any whatsoever with the Usos, but they've been reinventing characters over the last few weeks, kind of giving them that fresh coat of paint. They did it with Cesaro. They did it with Robert Roode. Done it with Bray Wyatt. This week, it looked like for at least a little while, they were going to do it with Gallows and Anderson. But it never happened. Instead, Gallows and Anderson came out. They showed a promo with Gallows and Anderson where Gallows and Anderson basically said, they're going to start to take things more serious. They're going to light a fire under their ass. They're going to be ready to go. And then, rather than doing that, they came out and lost. Which is like, if the plan was to have Gallows and Anderson lose, no shame in losing, but why come out and make this whole deal where they say they're going to reinvent themselves, they're going to be super, they're going to be a lot more, involved, they were going to take things a little more seriously, and then they come out and they flat out lost to the Usos in their first match as the reinvented characters. I thought it was lame. I didn't enjoy it, but other than that, though, Usos continuing to look really strong on the Raw side of things. And then here we go. Revival against Hawkins and Ryder. So I've always felt WWE has done a good job in telling the underdog story. I think where WWE struggles is what to do with the underdog story once the underdog succeeds. So I'm very interested to see how Hawkins and Ryder do here. Hawkins and Ryder, I'd say Hawkins is probably better in ring. I don't think that's any doubt. But I think both of them are solid in ring. So I'd like to see them get a sustained run here. But again, I'm a little nervous. But I will say Revival didn't even get an entrance. They got total jobber treatment. And earlier tonight, the Usos kind of showed almost like if you're a fan for a long period of time, almost like a GTV type backstage camera deal where they showed Dawson and Dash, the Revival in the back, with one of them shaving and the other one's back. It was silly stuff. And of course, what's funny about that, though, is Zack Ryder's been very open. And basically one of the things that got Zack Ryder over, really, when he first started things up, was this idea that Zack Ryder was always talking about narrowing your back. And in those Z True Long Island stories, it was always about somebody else coming up and really helping Zack Ryder to shave his back. So it's funny now that that's kind of being used as almost like a heel tactic. But at the end of the day, Zack Ryder has always been pretty big on that. So when I had heard that had happened and I checked that out, I was surprised to see that it was Wilder and Dawson who were being portrayed as shaving each other's back, but also just unnecessary. I think that these guys are one of the best tag teams in the entire world of Revival. And the Usos also are. So we're going to get Usos Revival at some point. We're going to get down there. We also do have the War Raiders, though. And the problem is War Raiders are destroying everyone. But in the process, there really aren't that many teams for them to destroy. There's only so many times they can beat up the Lucha House Party. And while it looks impressive as all hell and gets them over as super badasses, it can only go really so far. So it's interesting to see kind of where they go with the Viking Raiders, whatever their names are, this week, I guess. Now Scott Dawson in the ring with Zack Ryder as Ryder's reaching for the tag from Kurt Hawkins. Not sure why the Revival got another match here with Ryder and Hawkins. I guess that's another bit of a depth issue for what they're doing. But right now, I mean, these guys they've lost twice to the Revival. So the Revival rather have lost twice to Hawkins and Ryder. So it doesn't make much sense to have these guys kind of in there and doing their own thing again. So I guess we'll see. We'll see kind of how it goes, and I guess we'll take it from there. But for right now, Ryder in the ring with Dawson, and they're doing their thing. Dawson kicking Ryder as Ryder put his head down and paid for it. Now Dawson with a right to Ryder, and then Dash coming from behind, leveling Ryder to the back of the head, knocking him down back into the center of the ring as now a double team from the Revival. Atomic drop, leg drop. Wilder drop down from Dawson. So one of the things that is going to be interesting to follow throughout this week is going to be there was this leaked NXT ladder match that was not mentioned at all on Raw. I don't know where that came from, but I don't see that as something. They've always kind of had NXT as a separate entity from the main roster, and I don't think that's going to change. If you want to do a Money in the Bank ladder match, I think they could have done an NXT TakeOver special and had a ladder match on that. And then that adds something else to the Money in the Bank weekend, which they've done in the past. But there haven't been any mention of a takeover or anything. So I'd be surprised if that ends up happening. Neck breaker and a nice one from Ryder to the back of Dash. And now Ryder now reaching to get to Hawkins, but looks like he's going to get cut off here by Dawson. Cutting down the ring there. Tag team specialist, if you will. Big elbow there from Dawson. Takes down Ryder. Goes for the cover. But Ryder rolls him up again. And 1, 2, and 3. Ryder and Hawkins get the win. And, man, that was pretty fluky. It's only so many times that we can get Ryder and Hawkins the win by fluke where they're going to be taken seriously. And that's the issue we've seen with the B team. That's the issue we've seen with, eventually with Slater and Rhino, though I do think they started out pretty well. But right now, every single time for Hawkins and Ryder to get a fluke win, it's like, come on. It's not something I enjoy too much. So Samoa Joe, though, against Rey Mysterio later, a little bit of a WrestleMania rematch. That is something I enjoy. Hopefully those guys will get a little bit of time. I know that Rey was banged up at WrestleMania, and so their match didn't go through. Another guy, Mysterio, who I expected to see in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and he's not there. So Shane McMahon, we were talking to Miz about how Shane laid out Miz earlier, cost him his match with Bobby Lashley, and left him laying. So now Miz is challenging Shane in a Money in the Bank ladder match at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Miz challenging Shane to a steel cage match, which got a pretty big reaction from the crowd, ironically enough. And here comes Sami Zayn. It'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes from there. There also was the... Oh, here comes Sami. He is over the top as can be here, laying down during his entrance here, getting his dance on, shaking his ass basically everywhere. And here we go. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where Sami goes from here. This week, one of the things that I've been enjoying Sami quite a bit, but one of the things I also have been enjoying are these Firefly Funhouse promos. It seems like the way that they were kind of dealing with this now is that there's a lot more to this Bray Wyatt character than meets the eye. And I think we all kind of knew that going in. He's not suddenly this happy-go-lucky Mr. Rogers, as I said last week, Steve from Blue's Clues type guy. He's somebody who is going to be doing a lot more, and he's going to be someone who has a lot of layers to his character. And you can see that tonight where for a second he kind of made a little bit of an evil face. He kind of did the last time. But he also introduced the stuttering rabbit, which I thought was funny, the stuttering bunny, whatever it was. And you also are seeing, like, as he's doing this different kind of, I guess, homages or something to the Wyatt family. And I hope they steer course with this, because I know that they've gotten some criticism for this. Obviously, the idea that he's supposed to be like a children's talk show host, but at the same time is somebody who's almost like an evil type talk show host or something that has layers to his character, is something where I think that it could be interesting, but at the same time, it could be a controversial type character. And I think it's something to kind of, kind of think about and see kind of where they go from there and what they continue to do as this character continues to evolve. But again, I liked it this week, liked it last week. I think right now it's probably, I'd say to a lesser extent Sami, and we'll see what Sami has to say this week and see where he's going with it. But I'd say definitely right now, Bray Wyatt, he's, number one trending with this Funhouse every single week, and it's something that people are talking about. It's something that even my non-wrestling friends, what's going on with Wyatt? Is he okay type deal? So it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go from there and how to go forward. So we'll see, but I'm intrigued to say the least, and I think that Bray Wyatt was definitely in need of a new character development and some more wrinkles to that character. So why not continue to see how that unfolds? And that's basically been Raw thus far. I feel like it's been an okay episode of Raw. I never love when they're going to just do a contract signing to end the show, which, hey, at the end of the day, hopefully we get a little more between kind of involving there between Seth Rollins and AJ Styles. At the same time, though, I feel like Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio, that could be really good. On that leaked list, which I'm wondering if it was such a leaked list or if it was something that somebody had kind of thrown out there. And this isn't a spoiler because, again, the leaked list for the guys who were in the Money in the Bank match were not correct. They had a variety of people out there, and I had seen that, and someone had said to me, why do a kind of a hotline on what's going to happen in regards to who's going to be in the Money in the Bank matches? We already know, and it turned out, obviously, those were incorrect. So I always say, you never know where they're going to go when it comes to WWE. WWE could also see the leaked list and say, all right, well, this guy wasn't going to win, that guy wasn't going to win, that guy's not going to win, so let's change things up a little bit. But on that list of matches that was out there was the idea that you'd have Samoa Joe going against John Cena. And I don't expect that John Cena is going to be coming out and doing his thing here to set up a match with Samoa Joe at Money in the Bank. But I guess stranger things have happened. I think Cena, the last time he was involved, he had a match with Roman Reigns, and that wasn't on a Big Four pay-per-view. So we'll see. I mean, that certainly could be something to look at. And I guess we'll kind of take it from here. Looks like a progressive ad here with all about Jimmy Hart, which is a little bit weird. And now they're, I guess, talking about Jimmy Hart and all the people he's managed, showing some old clips here from the 80s with that classic entranceway. And you've got the Honky Tonk Man there with the megaphone and the guitar, showing the fabulous Rude Joes using that megaphone. This is a really nice profile piece for Jimmy Hart, but at the end of the day, it's somehow a progressive ad. So we'll see. Sammy's back in the ring, crowd cheering him on. Now, I wonder which way they go with this here, because it seems like the crowd is continuing to eat this up, and they love Sammy's entrance, and they love Sammy's music, and I wonder kind of where they go, if they're going to just eventually have Sammy embrace the crowd, or if they kind of go with like a, he's just getting driven crazy here. Sami Zayn talking about how he's been recovering from shoulder surgery for the last 9 months. Kind of, I was interested to see, because I saw that the Tacoma Dome is going to be hosting WWE's new show, Stomping Grounds, that was announced today. That'll be replacing Backlash. And the Tacoma Dome, I was like, dome? Like, is this a dome show? So I did some research, and it isn't a dome from a perspective. It is a dome, but from a perspective of it's still an arena-sized building. It's not a stadium. I thought, when I first heard, I was like, my gosh, a stadium for a brand new show could be death. But let's see here. It says psychological entitlement. Psychological entitlement refers to a general belief that one deserves more. Oh, thank you, Sammy. or there you go. One deserves more than, or is entitled to more than others. And I guess he's referring to the wrestling fan base, or the WWE fan base, rather, the WWE universe. But it is going to be interesting, because this almost reminds me of the time period where Kurt Angle was getting so annoyed at the crowd for chanting "You suck" at him, that when he'd eventually come down and he'd hear the "You suck," they would black it out, and you'd hear like beeping instead of "You suck," and he would act like, despite being in the arena, everyone screaming at him, that he couldn't hear anybody. And I thought that was really interesting to kind of see him do that. Back to my point about Tacoma, though. So when I did do some research on the Dome, I was like, 23,000 people is how many people are in the Dome, which is obviously way more than most places. Most places are between 15 and 20,000 capacity. A place like Madison Square Garden is even less than that. So I was like, 23,000 is a lot. I wonder if they're going to be able to sell that out, especially for a show like a brand new concept, Stomping Grounds. But then I did some research on the biggest kind of arenas, indoor arenas, because in the entire U.S., and found out that the Tacoma Dome, where this Stomping Ground show is going to be taking place, is actually the 4th largest arena, indoor arena in the United States, behind only 3 arenas. One being the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina. One being the United Center over in Chicago, Illinois, which has been a famous building for many years. Everyone loves Chicago and their fan base. But the biggest indoor arena in the United States is actually the Rupp Arena, which is where Raw is taking place this today. So we'll see. Sami Zayn talking about how the crowd's not making him feel good, even though they feel like they probably are making him feel good. Now Sammy's talking about how at age 5 they're owed something. It is interesting to see what they're doing with this, because this almost feels like this is Vince McMahon sending Sami Zayn out there to talk about every single thing that he is probably feeling about the wrestling fan base, and about, you know, the crowd saying that Baron Corbin doesn't deserve to have the match with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania, or the crowd doesn't feel like they deserve much of anything from, you know, the crowd wants this guy to be champ, doesn't want that guy to be pushed. So it kind of makes sense, you know, kind of what Sammy's doing here is almost like this is Vince McMahon talking through Sami Zayn.
That is the new dynamic of this relationship. I will give you, and you will sit there and take whatever I'm
And now Sami Zayn is straight up saying, I will give you whatever I want to do, and you will sit there and take whatever Sami Zayn gives to him. Which is really, I mean, they're really giving you kind of right now Vince McMahon and everything that he is saying through Sami Zayn right here. Now Sami Zayn is straight up saying, if you don't like it here, you know, just quit. And now Sami's asking, do you want Sami Zayn to quit WWE? And obviously, there's many rumors going around of talent right and left asking for their releases. Luke Gallows, the Kanellises, amongst others, the Revival. The only one who was really given his releases were, I guess, Hideo Itami and Goldust, Dustin Runnels. So he's telling, no, Sami's saying it would be amazing for him to quit WWE, and instead he's going to keep coming out there little by little each and every week and insulting everybody there week after week and holding them all accountable for everything that goes on. So interesting to see where this goes from Sami. Nobody's interrupted him in the first 3 weeks now that he's been doing this, because Mania was 3 weeks ago. He came back night after Mania. And he's basically saying he is going to be the critic of the critics of the WWE Universe. He's going to come out there. He's basically going to insult the crowd and do his thing. And we'll see who eventually stands up for the people here. And eventually, is that going to happen? But doesn't look like it's happening right now. And I think the best part about this, Sami right now, I think he's cutting the best promos in all of WWE. Another great promo. The interesting part about this is that his music is just so damn catchy. So everyone loves to do it. Sami's now running over to the crowd. Now, you do know, by the way, notice that you have the security is, there's no one near him. He just ran over the crowd. The crowd is way far back. So security definitely up quite a bit. Shane McMahon accepting the challenge of The Miz. So we could add Shane McMahon and The Miz in a steel cage match at Money in the Bank, which probably means that crazy Shane McMahon is going to be flying off something at Money in the Bank. But that should probably be, you'd assume, the blow-off of the feud there between Shane and Miz. I'm surprised it's even gone on as long as it has. And here comes Samoa Joe, looking like a total badass. U.S. title in tow. Impact Wrestling, by the way, announced that they're going to be launching an Impact Plus station. Don't talk too much about Impact Wrestling, but I will say last night's show, if you are a fan of wrestling, go out of your way to try to find this show. This show is great. Last 4 matches of that show last night, Impact Rebellion, phenomenal matches. LAX against the Lucha Brothers. Johnny Impact against Brian Cage. Rich Swann against Sami Callihan. And Tessa Blanchard against Gail Kim. Those matches were awesome yesterday. That was a great, great show. They're also going to be doing something called Impact Plus. And what I'm interested to see is if that's going to include all the old Impact stuff. Because if it does include access to the Impact library, that means you're really going to get a lot of classic Samoa Joe matches, classic Kurt Angle matches, a lot of matches from a lot of the guys in WWE right now. Bobby Roode, AJ Styles. you'll be able to kind of go back and see how they all kind of evolved and how they all kind of really started and got something for them and kind of a spotlight on them while in TNA, which is now Impact Wrestling. But if you've been sleeping on Impact Wrestling, I told you guys when I went to the Impact Wrestling show over WrestleMania weekend, it is really, really good, strong stuff right now. Now, I know they have some questionable characters in there. Not big on the hiring of Michael Elgin, who did show up at the end of the show yesterday. But at the end of the day, a lot of those guys can go, and the wrestling it's been really good. I mean, insane stuff. And Tessa Blanchard right now, I think at some point she was in WWE. I don't know how they let her go because she's fantastic. She might be, I'd equate her. She might be better than any, other than maybe a select few here in WWE. She's right up there with the best woman wrestling, I'd say, around right now. And I love the dynamic they presented yesterday by having Tully Blanchard out there. It was very reminiscent almost of when Charlotte was first getting her start, when she had Rick in her corner, or even when Natty had Brett in her corner. But, that could have been a really fun dynamic if they had not, let Tessa go. If they had Tessa kind of coming up with Tully while you had Charlotte coming up with Rick, I thought that could have been something really interesting to kind of check out from there. I don't know if you guys get this. I watch Raw through Hulu with live TV every week, and Frank Thomas Nugenics commercial comes on like 200 or 300 times every single episode of Raw. Like literally every commercial break, Nugenics with Frank Thomas. It's completely ridiculous. Well, we'll see tonight. The main event, the main event segment at least should be AJ Styles and Seth Rollins doing a contract signing to determine, to solidify their main event match for Money in the Bank, which is obviously a dream match for many people. I'm surprised we're getting it so soon. I worry, and I almost expect that match is not going to close the show, but will instead be on in the middle of the show, and we won't get a winner. Because I think it's only going to be the start of it, or it might even be something where someone comes out, interrupts it, and in doing so, they kind of split off for a bit and then maybe come back to, there's my main man, Chris Lee over here, come back to Seth and AJ at a later time. But I think, I for one, would be very, very surprised if this ends up with the finish between the two. But we're getting a contract signing tonight, and now we're about to get Ray and Samoa Joe. Money in the Bank this year at the Hartford Center over in Hartford, Connecticut. Feels like a real long time since they've had a pay-per-view.
I managed to watch that segment earlier of you and your son. It was very touching. But I noticed something. You see, your son tells you that he loves you, but his actions say something very, very different. You see, when I look at
Samoa Joe calling into question the actions of Dominic Mysterio. And he said that your son might have said that he loved you, but he sees it somewhat different. He sees that the son is actually ashamed of Rey Mysterio. Dominic Mysterio, man, this kid has grown up before our very eyes. Remember, he was someone who was used way back in the day when it was Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero over the custody of Dominic, who Dominic's real father was. They did a deal where Dominic then was involved with the CM Punk and Rey Mysterio build for WrestleMania. And now, here we go, and he's all grown up, and he's been wrestling, and there wasn't much that happened. Come to think of it, I wouldn't be surprised to see this feud between Joe and Samoa Joe doing his promo game to a next level here. So he's going to make tonight will pale and make what he did to Ray, which was in essence squash Ray, pale in comparison. But yeah, wouldn't be shocked to see them continue this feud here between Ray and Samoa Joe all the way through WrestleMania, with the idea being that these guys have really kind of worked. I think that the Dominic stuff was supposed to be a big portion of what was happening in this storyline between Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio, and they didn't get to it. And they didn't get to it because Ray was obviously banged up, and they weren't able to kind of do too much with Ray in regards to WrestleMania in regards to kind of where they were at with Rey Mysterio. So with that being said, they just had Joe squash him and destroyed him, and now I do expect a little bit more of a competitive match here as Rey is firing with right forearms to Samoa Joe, but Joe catches him, tosses him to the outside like he's nothing, and now Joe kind of leveling Rey, who's now on the outside, and Joe goes up and goes to go through the second rope, but Rey flies back in, catches Samoa Joe with kicks to the face, and now dropping the dime onto Joe on the outside, takes Joe down. Rey back into the ring, and he's looking down at Joe. Joe down is laying down on the arena floor. Rey off the rope, and Rey with that baseball slide splash, which is what he's been doing, to the outside, but Joe caught him with his knees, and another commercial break, which is something that continues to frustrate me, despite the fact that at some point you'd think I'd get used to having a commercial break roughly every 2 or 3 minutes on Raw. Miz and Mrs. commercial here for Miz and Maurice. I'm not sure if you guys have been watching Miz and Mrs. I just don't have enough time to watch it, but it supposedly does very, very well. The times I've seen it, Miz has come across as a super likable guy, so hey, it is kind of what it is. What can you do? At the end of the day, there's the things I do like about it are sort of that peek behind the curtain stuff. I've always liked that, even with Total Divas, even with any of the Total Bellas, any of the shows, any of those specials. Whenever you can get that peek behind the curtain, I think it's certainly something to kind of look forward to and something to be kind of worthwhile about. One of the things that will be interesting to kind of monitor here is going to be what they do with the women's title, because now you have Becky Lynch. She's fighting 2 different matches at Money in the Bank. She has a match against Lacey Evans. She has a match against Charlotte Flair. So it would be interesting to see if Becky could come out and keep both belts. One of the things that's interesting, though, is like they're really getting this Becky 2 belts thing over as a big deal. Becky's coming across like the top star right now, probably in the entire company. So if you take the belt off Becky, any of the belts, it doesn't make much sense, because that's kind of been the character they've been building up. It's the big thing they've gotten coming out of WrestleMania is Becky 2 belts. So I'm interested to see, is this something that they keep Becky with both belts, or do they take one of them off of her? It would make sense almost to utilize Money in the Bank to get the belts off Becky, whether it be one of the 2 matches, or whoever wins that women's Money in the Bank match comes in, cashes in, and gets one of the belts. That being said, I think that Carmella is where she's at right now because of the Money in the Bank briefcase. I think her being Miss Money in the Bank and cashing in the SmackDown after WrestleMania last year really helped her kind of right after the Iconics debuted. I think it really helped establish her as who she was, at that time, right there in the thick of things on the SmackDown women's roster. And I think that she probably wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for that Money in the Bank briefcase. So that briefcase can really help to elevate some people. Now, some people don't need the briefcase. Braun Strowman should have probably never won the briefcase because it doesn't fit his character. Braun Strowman's a big, badass, burly guy. He's supposed to just come out and say he wants to fight somebody man-to-man. He's not someone who's going to cash in. And then, of course, they did all the false cash-ins. And when did he even cash in? Was it in Saudi Arabia? Like, I don't even remember his cash-in. I just know that he didn't come through with it. So, I hate to say it, but based on his character alone, someone like, we don't know who's going to be in the match yet on the SmackDown side of things, but Braun Strowman, Baron Corbin, rather, is someone who would probably be the best guy to win the Money in the Bank, even though I wouldn't want to see it, just based off of the type of character that would take advantage of a situation by cashing in. But they've already done it with Corbin, and I hope they don't do it again. Nice snap suplex. As we come back from the commercial break here, Joe delivers to Rey Mysterio. Now Joe kind of looking down at Rey with disgust as Rey does what he can to kind of peel himself back up, and Rey falls back down to the ring canvas. Joe seems to be growing his hair out a bit. Now Joe working over the neck of Mysterio, has him in like a kind of a neck lock, so to speak, and he's really pulling it back on there. I at least appreciate, you know, that they've done a little bit to, you know, whether they continue this feud or not, they've done a little bit to utilize that WrestleMania match to have Ray now at a point where he's kind of questioning himself, saying, boy, that was demoralizing. Like, oh, goes for a backsplash, does Joe, but Ray is able to roll out of that, get out of the way, and now Ray going over. Looks like he's getting ready to potentially drop the dime again as he goes over to that top rope. Springboards off the top, catches him, drops the dime, takes down Joe, and now a drop kick to the left knee of Joe, and now really working over that leg with stiff kicks is Rey Mysterio. Mysterio off the second rope, catches Joe, but Joe catches him over on his shoulder, has him up, but a tilt-a-whirl into a DDT from Mysterio. Mysterio now goes for the cover, and Joe able to kick out. Much better match here. And that's a shame because when they were holding this match off at WrestleMania, I was like, man, even though we were about 15 matches in at that point, I was looking forward to Joe and Ray. That's your type of WrestleMania match that could have potentially stolen the show. So hopefully they continue to do a little bit of a feud here going forward. Mysterio through the legs of Joe. Comes back, catches him. Hurricane Rana's Joe right into the turnbuckle, top turnbuckle. And now Joe up there. 619 to the stomach of Joe. Ray now climbing up to the top rope. Tries to go for the Hurricane Rana. Does. And Hurricane Rana's Joe perfectly into position for another 619. Ray dialing him up. No. Joe catches. Pushes back Ray's feet in the middle of the 619. Now going for the Coquina. But Ray ducks out. Big kick to the top of the face of Joe. Ray now going over. Oh, but Joe catches, throws him down with authority out of the corner. Joe's just been one step ahead of Ray the entire match. You can see Ray's got that medical tape on one of his shoulders there. Not sure if that was the issue of what was ailing him during WrestleMania weekend. But Joe kind of going up now. Goes to pull up Ray. Ray goes over and rolls him up. 1, 2, and he got him. Rolled him up, and Joe kicked out right at 3. Looks like Ray does get the win, so we're going to continue this program, one would assume. And here comes Dominic. That Dominic looks awfully weaselly. And he's celebrating with Ray. And I'm thinking, every time I see Dominic, I'm like, my man is either going to be eating a Coquina clutch sooner rather than later, or he's going to, oh my God, comes up underneath Ray, has Ray up on his shoulders, and Dominic's putting his fingers up, all excited as Ray's sitting on top of him, giving him a big kind of kissing Dominic's cheeks. So over the top. But again, it just feels like it's too over the top. Feels like it's far too much. And I think we're waiting to a point where either either Dominic is going to turn on Ray, which I think could very easily happen. Maybe even starting his in-ring career. Imagine what that would be, starting his WWE in-ring career, because I know he's been training. Well, imagine what that would be, a match between Ray and Dominic. Maybe at SummerSlam. So fantasy booking father versus son match at SummerSlam. And at the same time, either that can happen or this feud just continues and it gets more of a spotlight on Samoa Joe by having Joe just destroy Dominic with the Coquina clutch. Maybe he does a deal where he knocks out Ray with the Coquina clutch and Dominic feels like he needs to step up to Samoa Joe. Maybe that's how we get Dominic involved. But over the top, coming out and putting Ray up on his shoulders for getting a fluky win over Samoa Joe. I think that's going to do it for our in-ring action tonight, by the way, guys. It is now 10:44. We're going to get our contract signing, and then that is going to put a bow on what's I felt like a decent episode of Raw. I feel like if we had sat here for the full 3 hours, maybe it wouldn't have been as exciting. But for an hour, it's been a painless hour. It's been fun. And we'll kind of see how they wrap this up and move forward. So again, everyone got all excited over that leaked set of matches. I don't know where the source was who was sourcing those matches, but really, as the night is progressing here, and we're starting to see everybody who's been in there, the matches for the Money in the Bank ladder matches have, the participants have already been mumble jumbled from what was in that leak. There was no mention of Shane and Miz in that leak. I don't think we're going to get anything NXT related. And it looks like we're going to get Ray and Samoa Joe, which wasn't really mentioned there either. So proceed with caution when these things come out. I know it's fun to get excited about them. And believe me, I don't blame anyone if you did get excited. I had even texted some friends and said, oh my God, there's a rumor that there's going to be an NXT title, NXT Money in the Bank ladder match. How great would that be? But I don't know if that's going to be the way that it goes. Again, it's I think, with the exception maybe of when they did that fatal four-way for one of the early NXT takeovers, and they had all four of those guys come up and have a tag match on Raw. And I only remember this because I was on vacation in Turks and Caicos, and right at the pool bar, they were playing Raw. And as I was getting over to the pool bar, I was like, is that Sami Zayn? What the hell is he doing? Did he get called up? And I quickly realized it was also Neville and Tyson Kidd, and that they were just doing an NXT, kind of an NXT match there, promoting the NXT takeover special. Other than that, they really haven't done too much there. Looks like we got Ring the Bell Radio over in the live chat. What's going on out there? Ring the Bell Radio has been doing some fun stuff, and go check them out over there. They've recently made their comeback into the world of wrestling, I guess podcasting, wrestling radio, so to speak, located out of Pittsburgh. Real good dudes over there. Check them out if you get a chance. I've been trying to work on coordinating something with the guys over there, trying to get something going in terms of some collaboration type stuff. Hopefully be able to do that sometime soon. Thanks for checking out the live chat, though. Oh, look at that. They're promoting now a Sonic deal, which is interesting that they're doing this with Michael Cole now in the middle of the ring.
It's for the Universal Championship.
Yes, would love to set something up. So I've seen some people there fearing that AJ Styles going heel would be a terrible thing. I personally love the heel work of AJ Styles. I think the problem with that is that he's just such a damn good heel. It's really easy to like him. So I don't know that you could turn AJ. I think he's a guy that people just will love regardless of what he's doing. I almost feel like maybe AJ has more fans than Seth Rollins. I mean, we're close to it. I know Rollins has a ton of fans. And definitely, you can send your hate tweets over to @WatchWrestlePod if you disagree with that. But I definitely think Rollins and AJ both have their legions of fans, and that's one that, if possible, and I'm able to get to Money in the Bank for, that match is something I'm really looking forward to, and I'm glad they're doing it. It does feel a little early, but my thought is that they probably have bigger things for both these guys at SummerSlam, or again, they can come back to it. We could set up something here. You could spin these guys off. You've got 3 shows. I think they're doing a Saudi show, and then they have the newly christened Stomping Ground show. And then obviously Extreme Rules over in Philly in July. So you still have 3 more shows between this Money in the Bank show and SummerSlam. And here comes Rollins. One thing I love about this is if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, this is our first time seeing these guys all night. And I think sometimes WWE has these guys show up 3-4 times during an evening, that by the time they finally come out at the end of the show, and I want to say that maybe Dave Meltzer was echoing this sentiment earlier this week, or I think that's where I heard it. These guys are always on the show. So you have them start the show, you have them end the show, and it really felt like today they've made a concerted effort. I could definitely see AJ doing it for a short run for sure. I could definitely see that. Oh, looks like I have lost the chat there. Give me 1 second. I'll try to pull it back up. Here we go. And it should be good now. Yes, we're back into the live chat there. But yeah, Rollins is the type of thing where, by him now being on the show for the first time all night, feels like a bigger deal to see them. And they did a good job, I feel, in seeing that. Oh, yeah, I agree. That's Ring Bell Radio making a good point, saying remember when Stone Cold could turn heel, and did work for a quick minute, and it did. So, yeah, AJ's a great heel. I just think the problem is that AJ is such an entertaining heel. The stuff with beat up John Cena, I thought was one of the more entertaining deals that AJ had really ever done. I love that stuff with the beat up John Cena. That was one of the things that I thought was some of his best work, especially their match they had, their series of matches they had, Royal Rumble 2017, SummerSlam 2016. Great matches. So AJ Styles talking about 2 years being on SmackDown. It was the house that AJ Styles built. For anyone beating up John Cena like that. Someone throwing up his 2 sweets there in the front row. Of course, I think that the one thing you can bank on. See, that's the reason why this is tough is you want to build up AJ as a top cog on Raw, and you want to make AJ Styles like a top. You want to do stuff to build up AJ on Raw. Problem is, if you're going to be serious about Seth Rollins being Universal Champ, being the face of your brand, you can't have him come out and then lose the belt right away. It wouldn't do much. It wouldn't do much. It would be pretty bad. So I don't think you could do that. Kind of like this. I hope they continue this steal here with both the guys kind of putting each other over. And, why can't it just be a fight with honor, so to speak? Maybe it's the wrong promotion, but I like that. Two guys, showing a little respect and just they both want to be champ. And I think that could totally work, especially when you already have Becky going up against Charlotte and you have Becky going up against Lacey Evans. That's a heel face. That's a heel face dynamic on both accounts. And obviously now on the SmackDown side of things, most likely we're going to end up with Kofi Kingston against Kevin Owens, who just turned on Kofi last week.
Here's the hard truth, Seth. You will never be the phenomenal AJ.
He said, here's the hard truth, Seth. You will never be the phenomenal AJ Styles. So one of the problems, I feel like, when you give AJ the mic and allow AJ to kind of do his thing, is AJ's a low-key, very, very good promo. Now, Seth's a good promo, too. But AJ, I do feel like, is at a different level when he's given the chance to be a chance to talk. And I think that during his last reign, while it was long and it was, prestigious reign, he didn't really get much opportunity to talk. But when he does, I feel like that AJ Styles, a lot of people say, hey, what went wrong with Dean Ambrose's run when he was the face of SmackDown? My big thing is nothing went wrong with it. It was just at the time, AJ was on the rise so much that while there was definitely some things they should have done, they should have never had Dean Ambrose so heavily tied to James Ellsworth. Dean Ambrose on the Stone Cold show was a total disaster. But by having AJ Styles, I think that AJ just has done such a good deal. Do I think that they want to take the belts off Becky due to her not drawing? I don't know that Becky's to blame for necessarily for things not drawing. I think a major problem with the not drawing is, they make everything at WrestleMania really about the part-timers. Think about it. You've had Brock as the champ. He's now off the show. You've had Ronda as the champ and involved in all the main storylines. She's now off the show. Daniel Bryan's been the face of SmackDown. That one's not on them, but he's now off the show. Triple H and Batista, everything was built up to those guys. When that ends, it was great. Thanks for suspending your disbelief. Batista's off to Hollywood, and we're done with that. So I think by having all those guys down, I think that is probably to blame for the ratings. Are they going to take the belts off Becky because she's not drawing? I don't necessarily think so. I think they're going to take the belts off Becky because I just don't think logistically it makes the most sense for them to have Becky a part of both shows. You want a touring champ on both brands. So I assume somebody else is going to take one of the belts. Wouldn't even be shocked to see Becky end up losing both belts and then sticking on one brand with one way and having the other title go a different direction with a different brand. So, I mean, we'll see. I expect, obviously, Becky to be on Raw for some, reasons we could probably figure out without necessarily getting into. But I think that Becky is somebody that I'd hope that they wouldn't think she wouldn't be drawing already. It's only been 3 weeks since WrestleMania. That would be a little bit of, responding real fast. But, who knows?
You see this shirt? You see this? The slogan here? Never rest, never rust.
Never rest, never rust is the new shirt for AJ Styles, and he's gone so far as to promote it here. AJ does have a rather cool looking vest on there, and potentially some new Elite. I always think of the Elite figures whenever these come out here, and AJ has some really new gear out, and it looks pretty good.
And I'm not going to let go until I'm standing over you.
They've really allowed AJ to kind of take over this entire promo here. Seth hasn't said a word yet. He's just over there, belt on his shoulder. And of course, 10:57. So remember, Raw now is off the air at 11. So we're not getting too much of a rebuttal here from Seth. But who knows? Maybe we'll get one here as Rollins finally looks like he's ready to take the mic.
You don't seem to understand what I'm saying, AJ, so let me spell it out for you. Look, we have a lot of things in common. We really do. But there's also a lot of differences between us. You said it earlier. You like to build things.
Ring the Bell Radio says, good point. I just think they built Becky up so much, and the people wanted her as champ. Now Vince is like, what do we do now? It is so funny you say that. I had made a similar point at the beginning when I first got on here, kind of about Ryder and Hawkins, how WWE does a good job building up the underdog, but then doesn't know what to do once the underdog gets to the promised land. Done it with Daniel Bryan, even when he was world champ, and they had him up there, and then it was like, he's the world champ, and now we're going to put him in a feud with Kane. Even way back, when Benoit won the title back in WrestleMania 20, he won the belt, didn't know what to do. They put him in a feud with Kane and put him in the middle of the card. Didn't even put him in the main events. So I think, look at Bayley down when she was in NXT. It was all this built up to Bayley finally winning the title. She won the title, and then she eventually just lost it to Asuka the next month, because I think they're so used to that story of the journey and the rise of someone that, you're right, they don't know what to do once that person has reached the promised land, once that person has gotten to that level. So, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm really interested to see. Part of me thinks they're going to take the belt off Kofi. I think they're going to go with a heel Kevin Owens as champ and go back to Kofi chasing, as I think they really like that idea. Hope they don't. I think that Kofi deserves a longer run, certainly. But, I would not be stunned to see Kevin Owens win the belt at Money in the Bank. Though that would be really soon. Now Seth here holding up the title here. AJ going for the handshake. Seth holding up. So already that fight for honor, so to speak, that mutual respect is already kind of out the window. Both guys jaw-jacking now. And AJ kind of walking away, but he doesn't look the happiest. How cool is this, though, that on Raw, which is historically, as AJ's beating down Seth here, Raw, which is historically land of the big guys, even up until recently with Lesnar and with Reigns and Strowman and those guys really kind of over being the top of Raw for so long. Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, Rob. Ring the bell. Appreciate it. Whoa, big flying shoulder block there by Rollins. Thanks again to Ring the Bell Radio for joining us in the live chat. Always good to talk with you guys, and really appreciate your perspective on all things pro wrestling. We're going to be back here. We're going to be on here just for a couple more minutes once Raw goes off. AJ, phenomenal forearm through the table. Wow, that's pretty cool. We'll be on here. We'll recap everything for you guys. You are watching Watchalong Wrestling. I am Tommy on the spot. If you guys like what you see, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to Watchalong Wrestling. We're here every Monday night and definitely trying to plan some other things throughout the week. We had a little bit of a hotline last week looking at people we thought were going to be named to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and ended up getting most of them. So we did pretty good to that extent, at least on the Raw side of things. And throughout the week, we'll have some more fun stuff. So AJ Styles is left standing tall as Raw goes off the air. So let's quickly recap everything. Let's set the stage in case you missed anything on Raw. And the live chat is still open if you guys want to leave your thoughts about anything on the show. Feel free to do so. I'll shout you out here on the air. If you've stumbled across us, if you see us on randomly showing up on YouTube, we are Watchalong Wrestling. Thanks so much for checking us out here today. I thought this was a solid episode of Raw. Nothing I disliked. Well, there's one thing I didn't like. I'll get to that in a sec. But I'd say the biggest news coming out of it was you have your Money in the Bank participants for both the Raw. All of the Raw Money in the Bank participants have been announced. There are going to be 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, one for the men, one for the women. It is going to be 8 in each match, so no longer is it going to be 6. It's going to be 8. Personally, I like 6. I think 6 is the best number for it. I feel like you add more people than 6, and you're asking for some trouble. I think that 6 is okay, but whenever you have 7, 8, too many guys get in there, people get hurt, and it's a lot harder for the viewer, in my opinion, to kind of watch along and kind of figure out what's going on. You miss things when there's so many people in there. So, but they are going with 8. On the Raw side of things for the men, you've got Braun Strowman, who I didn't really want in that Money in the Bank ladder match. Braun Strowman's a guy at this point, wouldn't mind him turning heel. I just feel like he's lost so much luster. He came out, and then Ricochet, who was also in the match, came out, and people were so much more into Ricochet. Just eating it up. But this has been kind of the norm for Braun right now. Braun's over, but man, he's not nearly as over as he was with the kind of that, get these hands deal that he had going on in the summer of this past year, even last year. He's just not at that level right now, and potentially a heel run might be good for him. Also joining them is going to be Drew McIntyre. I think this is Drew's match to lose. He's the guy that I'd be very surprised if he didn't end up leaving with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Seems like he's destined for a world title run. And then Baron Corbin, who, if you're going from a perspective of Money in the Bank is supposed to be for the smarmy heel and kind of a cowardly heel who's going to be opportunistic and take advantage, Baron might be the guy. As much as I don't want to see that, I wouldn't be surprised to see Baron get that belt, get the Money in the Bank for a second time, especially because it feels like they're really building Baron up as someone who just is a guy who gets a lot here. I mean, he's just defeated Kurt Angle in his farewell match. Seems like they're also putting a lot behind Baron. So that it rounds out the men's side of things. And then, of course, they did the ever so fun, and I say that completely sarcastically, Ricochet and Braun Strowman against Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre, which like yawn, snore, every time. Too much. But on the women's side of things, you got Dana Brooke, you got Natalya, you've got Alexa Bliss, and you've got Naomi. So actually ended up getting all 3 of those. They added Natalya to the 3 that I thought were going to be in there. But I definitely told you guys about Dana Brooke. They see something in her. They seem to be a little bit behind her. I definitely don't think she's going to win, but I think that she is going to be somebody that they kind of they get behind. So remains to be seen. Also, it was announced on this show that it is going to be at Money in the Bank steel cage match. The Miz versus Shane McMahon. One would assume that will blow up that feud. Shane came out tonight, cost the Miz his match with Bobby Lashley. So they're continuing that, and it seems like that'll probably blow up, one would assume, at Money in the Bank. But Shane's probably had his most matches he's ever had in his career in a year. He's had matches up and down the card every single show from the Royal Rumble now all the way up to Money in the Bank. So who knows where they go. And I think they're building to eventually get to Shane versus Roman. As a matter of fact, I thought they had really kind of steered away from Shane and Miz, and they were now focusing on Shane being more on SmackDown. But they went back to Shane and Miz, I guess, to kind of tie up some loose ends at Money in the Bank, which makes sense. There's always some WrestleMania rematches on the show after that. Speaking of which, there was a WrestleMania rematch tonight as Rey Mysterio did defeat Samoa Joe tonight. Ended up getting kind of a fluky win, rolled him up, ran outside the ring, and was met by Dominic. So they're continuing to build of Dominic getting involved in the storyline there. That'll be something to kind of watch. Dominic had this ridiculous over-the-top celebration where he had Rey up on his shoulders. He was holding him up. It looks far too much. Call it that cough there, guys. Sorry. Sheesh. And excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. So Dominic is there. He looks like somebody who's going to get involved. I'm thinking he's either going to be somebody who gets involved by turning on Ray or he gets beat down from Samoa Joe. Regardless, I think this was their deal for WrestleMania, and it just couldn't happen because of Ray's injury. So it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward with Dominic and Ray. So that's basically everything you need to know about Raw tonight. Oh, the other thing I absolutely hated. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson cut a promo. They're now fully focused. They're ready to go. They're ready to take things more seriously. Be right back in the deal for the Money in the Bank ladder for the Raw Tag Team title scene. And then what happens? They come out and they lose clean to the Usos. Rinse and repeat. Didn't like that. But I thought everything else was okay on Raw. I thought it was okay. I thought the continuing of the build for Lacey Evans against Becky Lynch, thought they did a good job there. And yeah, I thought Raw was pretty okay. I mean, it wasn't anything you needed to go out of your way to really see, but I thought it was good stuff. And I love the stuff at the end, really solidifying AJ Styles as a main eventer on Raw, having him lay out Seth with the phenomenal forearm. If those guys are given time, I think they were going to have a really, really good a really good match at Money in the Bank, and I'm excited for it. So hopefully that happens. My voice suddenly is pretty much gone. I don't even know how I'm continuing here to talk, so I've got to roll. But thanks so much for checking us out here today, guys, on Watchalong Wrestling. Keep it locked right here. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, do what you got to do to make sure you don't miss out on any of the content that we have throughout the week. We will be back either late tomorrow or early Wednesday, a little SmackDown review. And until then, everybody, have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon. I am Tommy on the spot, and hopefully you enjoyed Monday Night Raw.